folks, the gremlins are howling tonight. You wouldn't believe the mayhem going on backstage. And anyway, good afternoon, good Sunday afternoon to all of you. As usual, we got a regular crew on board, Mr. Thomas Steenberg, and also Mr. Bill Reed. Trust me, he's behind that target. And Leon is not here tonight, but we do have a question to ask. I don't even know if he could answer it. And that's what makes a Sasquatch researcher tick, especially a female researcher, or for that matter, even a Sasquatch enthusiast. I mean, you're dealing with a muscular, human like creature which could rip off your head with little effort. So, I don't know what the fascination is for the ladies with that, but you don't see many toddlers walking around with a stuffed Sasquatch or a Yeti under their arm. So, what went, Bigfoot Barbie, no Bigfoot Barbies. And so, what went wrong with these women to make them interested in this subject? Well, we just so happen to have a person who may have some answers, and that's our friend Jennifer Watkins from Ohio. Hello, Jennifer. Come on from backstage. There she is. Good-looking gal. Now, so tell me, Jen, did you build monsters as a kid, monster models, or are you a horror movie fan, or what?
No.
What leaned you towards this?
Honestly, I saw the PG film, and I saw some other documentaries when I was younger, and it intrigued me as to, could that be real? The PG film actually made me say, that looks like a real thing. And it piqued my interest in growing up in Pennsylvania in the woods and what's out there,
Yeah, but I mean, were your girlfriends into this also? No. What did your family think of your interest even today?
That I'm nuts.
Oh, well, yeah. I can identify with that.
Why? They're my mother's come around to looking at some things and going, well, okay, maybe something like that could be out there still. She's like, I think you're nuts for wanting to go find one. But I'm in a big boat with a lot of other nuts. So,
Oh, well, that's for certain. That's for certain, yeah. What do you think? Are women different from men when it comes out? It comes out to going out into the woods or going on an expedition or whatever. I mean, do they contribute different things from each other?
I think so. I
mean, you hear some that say, "Oh, women have a calming effect on Bigfoot and stuff like that." Do you think there's any more of a chance of women being better to communicate with a creature like this than, say, a male would?
Possibly. I mean, I think women not as imposing as men can be. I think we might come at it a little more in a more of a nurturing feeling than, being associated with, being hunters.
Yeah, like because the women that are women that, to your way of thinking, are women more in what's the word? Inclined to be more observant than males. Women are the gatherers, where males are hunter gatherers. Now, one would think that would make the male more of a candidate because being a hunter, he'd have a very sharp eye for being navigating around the woods. But then a woman being a gatherer got a pretty sharp eye to the lay of the land and what grows on it and what looks odd and what looks out of place and what, they got two different uh, they got two different qualities about them.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think um, women would also tend to be a little less aggressive in the situation.
Yeah, yeah, I can get that.
And then, I think if you come up against a grumpy animal of some sort, it's if you're going to be aggressive back, do you escalate it or can you remain calm and kind of bring it down a little bit?
Well, this is true, although both sexes are quite capable of turning and running.
Oh, absolutely.
without,
Absolutely.
without any discussion in the matter. Just
Uh-huh.
run.
Run. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to say hello to Sharon in the audience, Sasquatch Wizard at Adirondacks. How you doing, Jonathan? Raptor Crazy. Okay. Aside from camaraderie on the trail, which is something that I love about this subject, what is it that you get from the subject, Jen?
Well, actually, that is it. I've made a lot of great friends. People that have common interests, don't always agree, but built a friendship and might not agree on some of the ways we look at things, but we can still talk about it and
Yeah.
still weigh this against that and find common grounds. And a lot of just really fun, interesting people.
Well, oddly enough, as the years go by, I think you sort of find that you're surrounded with only those people with an interest in Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Your other, unless they're
Yeah,
very close friends, your other friends have sort of drifted away, So, oh, good luck with
yeah,
that.
I've got my core group that have been there forever and they're gonna be there. Do they want to go do this? No. But we have our interests from outside the subject that we're still, we're good.
Well, yeah. I must admit, whenever I get together with Thomas or Bill or Leon, we don't really talk about Sasquatch. You talk about everything else going on, but you don't talk about Sasquatch. It's almost like this is a breather space, okay? No Squatch talk.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
So, what's the best time you ever had in the field? What's the one time you said, "Boy, that was a blast"?
Oh, I'd have to say the Washington trip was great. Um, Up to Mount St. Helens.
Yeah, we'll talk about
Honestly,
that later. Yeah.
yeah, honestly, anytime's a good time. You're out with your friends, you're getting to share an experience, you're getting to enjoy the woods. Nothing wrong with any of that. So
So,
it's just
how would you peg yourself? Are you more of a researcher than an investigator, or are you more of an enthusiast than you are a researcher? If
I
someone
think
had to
I lean
pigeonhole
more
you,
toward enthusiast investigator. Like I like being out there and looking for footprints. I like um hearing the sound in the night and then everybody kind of huddles up and what was that? you know. I enjoyed that part of it. I don't really consider myself I don't go out there with a bunch of gear. I'm not going to be the one that's going to come back with the film footage. I'm doing it for myself mostly.
yeah. Have you ever done an interview or anything like that out in the field?
Like interview witness.
Yeah.
Per, um, no, I mean people have talked about what has happened, and I'll ask questions, but it's not something that I'm going to document or anything like that. It's more of a a conversation. And
Yeah.
and if it's, if they sound logical and reasonable and realistic, you know, great. If it sounds way out there, I'm still going to listen to them, but I'm not going to
But you have
take
your own. You have
take
your
much
own. Yeah.
take much out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
You still
like
have. You still have your own bar of credulity. Like I mean, you're you do retain some skepticism.
yeah, I think there's a lot of um I think, there's the Bigfoot phenomena and then there's other things. And sometimes those things can overlap in somebody's area and then it just all gets lumped to one big pile. And
Mm.
it's not the same things. They're different. This is this, that is that, those are those. And it can't just all be put in that one bowl and it's all one thing.
It's a
To me.
complicated. Yeah, it's a complicated subject,
Yep.
and you've got many different stances to take on it too. Tell me, tell me about your journey to Mount St. Helens. What was that like? Had you
Oh,
ever been there before?
no, I had not. Um, First and foremost for me, it was more just the fellowship of getting to, you know, get to hug Nikki and get to meet Thomas and get to meet Brent. And, that's more what it was for me. It was more about these people that I've seen and talked to and been around, done a show with here or there, and actually getting to give them a hug and hang out and talk to them. That's the majority of it for me. The the Bigfooting part of it, yep, there she is. Miss
Yeah,
Nikki.
the
Yeah, I
masters of
mean,
disasters.
but getting to do that and then seeing,
Don't you think
how
it's pretty cool, isn't it? You get to meet these characters that you've only spoken to on video, and
yeah,
you get to meet them face to face. And yeah, I mean, like we got Andrew there, and is that his wife?
yeah,
Mr.
Steve
Andrew's
and his
wife.
wife. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Lady of Leisure. Okay.
Yep.
And
Eating good barbecue.
group photo, usual suspects.
Oh
So
yeah.
Thomas from left to right, who are we looking at here?
I have a nice idea.
Oh wow.
We
Okay.
got Dakota and Papa C and Nana and Michael and me and Brent
Yeah.
and Steve and his wife and then some Thomas guy
Some
that they
guy,
invited
yeah,
there.
right. Yeah. He just
And
mooching
then
around for the food, that's all. He just wandered into the camp. Is that Brent
yeah.
over his shoulder or is it Brent with
Yeah, I believe that's Brent and then the
yeah,
other gentleman on the other end might have been Dakota or
yeah,
Michael. Oh, that's Michael. Yeah. Brent's
right.
behind Thomas. Yep.
Well, that's DeSoto at the far left, isn't it?
With the
No,
black
right on here.
t-shirt.
No.
Looking at it from my angle, I think Dakota is far left and Brent
Yeah,
is right behind you. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yep.
right. Yeah.
He's right between you and Nikki.
Yeah.
Okay, what are the dogs' names?
Oh, Sibylla and I don't remember the Golden's name. The German Shepherd is Sibylla.
Mm.
But I don't remember the other one.
So
Polar?
Thomas, what was your trip to Mount St. Helens like?
Well, first of all, I'd like to probably ask Jen. Jen, you started off in Pennsylvania, and now
Yeah,
you're in Ohio.
right.
Okay. Now, what time period was it that you started? Are we talking about the 90s, the early 2000s? When it?
Uh, Probably late 90s or early 2000s.
Okay. Did you have any contact with Don Keating and researchers out around your area at the time?
No. No, no. Really, I found people who were interested in the subject, and we'd go like weekend warrior camping
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. It wasn't so much as looking for like any leader in the field type of person to get information from. It was just kind of a wild run out there and see what the heck happens type of deal.
So you never attended any of the conferences or anything that were held out that way or anything like that?
Nope, never went to a one. My first conference was actually last year.
Okay, so when you started getting interest in the subject, being where you were in Pennsylvania at the time, was it local stuff you were hearing about, or were you generally under the opinion that the Sasquatch was the Pacific Northwest?
Um, I would look up, are there Bigfoot reports in the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the general area I was living. And I would find, bits and pieces here or there. So I wasn't under the impression that it was just a Northwest, a Pacific Northwest thing. And looking around, just where are Bigfoots found? Where are they seen? And you see reports from all over the place. So it was never to me that it was, they just live in Washington and Oregon and that's it. That's the only place. But I came into this, later. So I didn't come into it going, okay, well, there was that one on that film and then that's it. I kind of, a little more reasoning to it and said, all right, well, if there's one, maybe there's more. Start, looking about reports. And then when we got the internet and all that kind of stuff and go and look at reports and look at where things were seen. And, I've never been, they can only be here. If there's woods and water, why not? It's my view is my.
When you started hearing about, were you surprised at all how many local incidents were happening?
Yeah. You kind of think of it's different from where I'm at now, because right now I don't think you have to be out in the middle of BFE nowhere to have something happen. I think they're far closer to us than we think.
Mm-hmm.
But the sightings, like I don't sit at home and prowl the local thing or the BFRO website and look for this happened 2 weeks ago here and then try to go there. It's more for me to go to places where I've had little things happen and go back to those places over, like try and repeat going back to those places and see if that happens again or something new happens and build my own case for myself.
Okay. Was there any particular incident that really grabbed your attention when you got started locally?
I'm sorry?
Was there any particular incident or report that really grabbed your attention locally when you started? And you said to yourself, there's got to be something to this.
Yeah, there was a report it made it to the news broadcast and they were showing somebody made a cast of a footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was like, well, that's cool. If that's a real footprint, then that means something was actually there, which is really, the whole point of the subject is it actually there? And, the guy had seen it crossing a road, or I believe, and then he went back and he found the footprint and he made a cast out of it. And then, the news, somehow it filtered through the news, and they, talked to him, and they showed the
So
cat.
this was a local incident that got some press attention at the time.
Yeah, local news station. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's not like I look back at like the former stuff and try and base today on it. Yes, there's a lot to learn from it, and you can, definitely learn things from people and how they look at it and how they think about it and how they reacted to it and what they learned from it, what they had, and all that stuff is valuable. Absolutely.
Well, I just want to say hello to Sharon and Eyes in the Woods. Thanks for dropping by, guys. And Raptor Crazy. And so, Jen, it occurs to all of us who've been at this long enough that our belief system, except for probably Thomas, our belief system comes and goes in waves. Has there ever been a point where you thought, this is a load of crap? And there was one guy, a chap named Greenwood, who said, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I fervently believe in Bigfoot and it'll be found any day now. Thursday and Friday, I think it's a pile of crap. And on Sunday, I don't think about it at all. I just love that. So, do you ever say to yourself, I wonder what bother this is? It's crap.
Honestly, for me, the physical things that I've found, like the footprints, some odd stuff that, walking about a half a mile off trail, back behind a pond and some reeds, and there's a bunch of berry bushes, and finding footprints, and we heard something huff at us from down over the hill, and that kind of stuff is what makes me say there's something there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what that something is, I'm not really sure. But it's enough to make me say there's something there. And really, that's about it. I mean, are they everywhere all the time? No. 90% of Bigfooting is going around, walking around in the woods in the night and finding nothing.
Yeah.
But it's the people that you're with when you're doing it. Are you, are you learning from each other? Are you enjoying what you're doing together? Is it,
Yeah, are you squatching more but enjoying it less? I guess that's for people who expect to be rewarded by some great find when they go out. And then when they don't come across it, they're very disappointed and jaded in the entire subject. I don't know. Everybody is in it for their own reasons and have their own expectations of what they're going to get out of it. And for some people it happens, for others it don't. But you're absolutely right about one thing, though, is the camaraderie and being out there doing that. I mean, the best time I can honestly say I've ever had in my life, best times, was either doing Sasquatch related something or ATVing or what. They're my two passions, and that's it. And yeah, I'll look on back on my deathbed and I'll say, boy, I had some great times.
Yeah, like I don't go out expecting, oh, every time I go out there, I'm going to hear something. I'm going to find something. There's going to be a footprint. No. If you come across it, bonus.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And
if you don't, want, go back to camp and, hang out around the fire and enjoy the people that you're with. There's no lose in that. There's
Very
no,
well put. Very well
it's a win-win.
Yeah. So, anybody in your family ever go on any of these little excursions with you?
No.
Not
No,
even once?
no. I've had some friends that are interested in it, and but every time like, hey, couple of people, we're gonna go camping. Yeah. Well, I can't do it. And there's that. They don't, if they can or if they can't, it's another subject. But
Well,
no,
going back, I'm sorry,
that's
go.
like finding the track. Meeting Mr. and Mrs. Trackway and Bud and Angie, Bud and his wife Angie, and these people that I've come to meet they're Ohio people, which, pack up like last night. The the Trackways are like, hey, let's go. We went, you know.
So,
It's
what was your experience, Thomas, in Mount St. Helens?
I thought it was a very good gathering. We all had a very good time. There was a lot of camaraderie there. It's always great when you get a bunch of people with a similar interest. But my fear is whenever we have a group, and it wasn't that big of a group, which is a good thing in my opinion. There's always that fear when I've noticed in the past when a big group gets together, they're always going to have one or two people who see Sasquatch everywhere.
Mm.
Yeah, and they're seeing it all right in their head. They're not seeing reality. That was always my biggest fear when we ever have these groups together. You always get someone there that I saw a face looking out at me, and they want to get everyone all excited and hovering around them and stuff like that. But that didn't happen in this case. And we were lucky. The campsite we had was just all we had to do was cross a creek and we were in the wilderness. We were in the wilderness, period. But there was all we had to do was cross the creek and it could be anywhere. And on this trip, well, there was actually one or two instances where possible footprints were found. Jen, as a matter of fact, found the second set.
Yeah, it's one of the pictures I sent, the one with the hammer. My camera didn't take a good picture, so I was kind of washed out, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think the first set by Dakota is definitely a possibility. I'm not prepared to declare it full out, but it was a possibility.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was good group of folks, and everybody was willing to support each other's ideas. And I want to try this. Okay, let's try it. And I think that being supportive of the people that you're out there with is what's important. Jen,
I don't think she's talking about you, Grasshopper.
I can't. I don't have a thing for my chat right now. So.
Yeah. But what was I going to say? Mount St. Helens, did you guys get a chance? Well, I guess you did because Jay Birch was with you guys. He's not in any of those pictures. But he's a local resident. Does he put any stock in this nonsense that was going on back in the 80s about these Sasquatch bodies being carried out of there after the initial blast from Mount St. Helens, and these bodies being carted out there under cover of darkness by the U.S. Army? And
I think Jay ixnayed that idea. As far as I know.
I can tell you, I asked him about that, and we were talking about stuff like that. No, he puts no credence in any of that crap.
It's a beautiful country. I'd never been down that far. Almost got there once. As far as Olympia, that was myself and you and Gwen got down to Olympia. But never.
We were in the bush a few miles north of Cougar, Washington, which is on the south slopes of Mount St. Helens. And this area, other than Ashfall, never really got touched by the blast because it was the north face that blew out.
Okay.
Yeah. The south face is just as old growth forest as it was back in the day. and that's the area we were mostly in. We were basically in the same area, Jerry, where Robert Morgan filmed his documentary film back in the late 70s. You remember that
Yeah,
one?
I know the one. Yeah,
Yeah, in the Cougar, Washington area, and gorgeous area. I mean, it's fantastic. And the weather when we were there, we couldn't ask for better.
No, absolutely
You
not.
know, it wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. It was sunny every day. It was nice at night. I mean, we were really lucked out. Yeah.
Yeah, if you go get up in the morning going, oh my God, it's cold, and a couple hours later you're like, woo, go put your shorts on, and then a couple hours later you go bundle, put the jeans back on and put the jacket back on. Yeah.
Hey, Jen, I've got a question for you. Now, you're in Ohio now, correct?
Yes.
So, in your studies, have you seen anything unique about the Ohio grassman phenomenon that would be, say, different than what is normally expected, say, on the Pacific Northwest coast? Or you think it's just a different name for the exact same creature and the habits and everything are pretty much the same?
I think they're pretty much the same. I think they vary in sizes and colors and personalities, but I think it's basically the same thing.
What do you mean by personality?
I mean, I think some might be a little more aggressive than others. Some might be a little more skittish than others.
Do you find that in Ohio that reports that there seems to be more of an aggressive trend than what you see here elsewhere?
No, not really, not too much. Some pebble throwing type of that kind of stuff, but nothing extremely aggressive or anything like that. But I think just like with any animal, human, whatever, some are friendlier than others, some are quicker to react than others, some are, more fearful than others.
Have you ever had a sighting yourself?
Not directly, no.
How about indirectly?
I think I saw, basically, we were walking through a path, and we had some stones being thrown from off to our right down in the woods.
This is in Ohio?
Yeah. And they were coming up and kind of bouncing on the tree limbs and bouncing into the path. And these were they were like lob throws, I would say. And so we're like, let's kind of move this along and get out of here because this is getting uncomfortable. Okay. So as we're moving along and I'm looking through the different tree lines, just keeping an eye out for whatever and anything, I kind of see some movement between a couple trees. So I stop and I'm watching, and then there's a quick movement from one tree to another tree. And it looked tall. But other than a dark shape that looked like it was tall with a head, going from, tree to tree real quick. That was it. So definitively, don't know.
What distance would you estimate it was from you?
Oh, I'm not that good with those, but half to 3/4 of a football field, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Half to 3/4 of a football field.
How many people were in your group this when
just
you
the two? It's just me and one other person.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I find that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
No, I was like, do you see anything over there? And he's like, there was something moved, and then, we stood there and watched for a little while and didn't see anything else. So, we just moved along because we weren't getting rocks anymore. So everything kind of calmed down, and we just kind of worked our way back out and left. But
I love the comment you made about the rocks being lobbed instead of thrown, because that's how primates throw things, is they lob it backhanded, which is confusing to me when I hear about reports about rocks whizzing through the upper canopy of trees and everything, going on a horizontal plane, because I'm more used to the idea of such an object being lobbed backhanded. It would have a quick arc up high and then a quick arc back down to the ground again to land on your feet. It wouldn't go whizzing by your head, you know?
Well, I mean, there was.
I just mean that in general. I wasn't reflecting on what you saw or experienced.
Yeah, no, we also have seen. I've also seen sitting in camp like these little. They're not acorns. I don't know what the heck they're called, but some sort of a nut. I was sitting in camp, and they were coming at the end of our campsite. It was a little ravine between each set of campsites, a little stream running through. Quite kind of steep. Sitting in camp, roasting hot dog, and these nuts are coming up out of the darkness and bouncing into camp and ding, bouncing off the chairs. But you know, I at those I wasn't taking as an aggressive thing as to where when we were in the woods, it was getting late and we were heading out, they were hitting things with kind of force. They were kind of ka-thump off the side of a tree. It was more forceful, I would say. And where this was more of a,
just trying to get your attention. See what you do. See what your reaction is.
Yeah, and you know, having things tossed at the tent lightly.
I think Bill had a couple more questions he wanted to ask.
No, thanks. You've derailed my train of thought. I'd have to get back into it. So, not at the moment.
Well, while he's directing his train of thought, I'll put you on another set of tracks altogether, Jen.
Okay.
And let's talk about Joe for a moment.
Yeah.
In case anybody does not know, I'm talking about Joe Snyder, who passed away last year. One of the most authentic people that I have ever known. I'll say that. And how did you meet Joe?
I would just be in his chat. And then the one day he was doing something where he hit the link and come on and hang out and talk and just a hangout show. How
did you become his producer? How did you have nerve enough to become his producer?
Really, we're up there. We're just hanging out. We're talking. We're laughing. We're having a good time. People are asking us questions in the chat and coming in and going out. And then halfway through the show, he goes, "Hey, you want to do a show with me?" And I'm like, "Sure." And that was that.
You did not know your own peril.
Did you ever go out with him, Jen, in the bush? Because he was in New York.
Yeah, no. We had talked about it.
Yeah.
And then what happened. We never got there.
Yeah. Well, you know, Joe.
We were trying to get him to come out here to Ohio and go to the Hocking Hills Festival with us last year. And he's like, I can't do it this year, but I'm going to do it next year, which will be the one coming up here in a couple weeks. But we'll always take him with me.
Well, you know, he was known to do 2 podcasts a day at times. And how were you able to keep up with him on that stuff?
We set ours to being Friday evenings, which for the most part worked out all right. Of course, there'd be days that, you know, he'd have me looking up all this kind of stuff for shows, and then he, like 20 minutes before show time, he'd go, "Hey, I don't feel like it. Sorry." Yeah, okay.
Jen, did you happen to record his shows? Because a lot of his shows disappeared. There was a technical glitch or something, and they just disappeared.
He lost his channel.
He deleted the channel, Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah, he deleted the channel. They were trying to figure out how to get it back, but I don't think it ever came
You
about
can't
that
do
they
you
didn't get it
can't
back.
do yeah well, you can't do that with YouTube at the best of times, let alone when you eliminate it yourself.
Yeah, and
They're not not an
he was
easy
tinkering
punch.
around with something, and he's like, "Oh crap! I deleted the whole channel." Like, you did what? He's like, "I
Wow.
can't get it back. I can't get it back." I'm like,
Yeah, because some of those are classic.
Mm.
I remember the night he changed the name from Sasquatch atheist because this guy phoned in who was an atheist and he wanted to debate him. So the very next day, it wasn't Bigfoot atheist anymore. It was Bigfoot scientific or something.
scientific Sasquatch, yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, he was really streaming off there for a while. For a while, that we did a couple programs where Sasquatch wasn't even the topic.
Oh no, and they
Yeah.
were probably the most fun
Well, those
programs.
ones, our Joe says, wait a minute, what was not a Bigfoot show.
Mhm.
That was for anything else that caught his interest.
Mhm.
Anything else that made him go, what? You know,
Mhm.
and had an interest of his in other fields and other things he found fun. That's what that show was for. It wasn't typically. It wasn't to be a Bigfoot show because he already had one or two of those floating around already. So,
God. Yeah, but I mean, he was genuine and authentic, and I had more fun listening to him not talk about Sasquatch than listening to anybody else actually talking about Sasquatch. He could start a show off by like, I just got back from the supermarket earlier about an hour ago, and do you know the price of bread at the supermarket? And that would be the whole show, the price of bread and everything at a supermarket. He would just ramble on and on. Who was it that said he got drunk one night, sobered up, and got drunk again?
yep. Good.
He was a very unique and precious guy.
He was.
I was
Miss him. I miss him every day.
well. I bet you do. I bet you do. And I was going to play Brent Dill's memorial to him at the end of the show, but I'll save that for another time. And I think Brent did a masterful job of putting that together.
He did. Bill Trackway.
Yeah.
He just recently put one out because we were there for his cremation, his ashes ceremony.
Which was a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, we went out, and they had their truck robbed, and all that footage of the stuff was gone. So he put together a wonderful little video in celebration of Joe and how the ceremony went, and he did a fabulous job on it. He did.
What I liked and admired about Joe is that he always had time for everybody. He always had time, You send him a text, depending on how busy he is, he'll be back to you in either 2 minutes or 2 hours, but he'll get back to you every single time. And I mean, myself and him had some long exchanges on text about different things of concern in the Sasquatch community or just podcasting or what have you. And
his close-up encounter was fascinating.
That is, I still like to get a T-shirt with Rasta on it. That's a classic.
I don't know if the store is still there or not.
I don't know, but I mean, we still carry his show that the 4 or 5 of us did during the interview a few weeks before he passed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still on the Book Boss crew. It's still the very first video you see when you come to the site. And I promised him that it will always be the very first video you see when you come to the site. As long as the site exists, that's where it'll be. And a number of times I thought, I'll just sit back. It's only 2.5 hours long. I'll just sit back and peruse through it again. And I never seemed to make it. I never seem to make it. And
Yeah, well, I mean, just as many times as I heard Joe speak his experience, every single time he was there, it was still like he was looking at it.
mhm.
You could see it. It was visceral when he would tell the story.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, you talk about uh, Bob and the PG film and everything, and how you believe in Bob when he looks into your eyes and talks to you. That was the same thing I got from Joe. How could you look at Joe and encompass his body language, his eyes, his expressions, and not really want to take the guy seriously? He really did experience this. I can't say what he experienced. I wasn't there, but he sure as heck experienced something very profound that changed his whole life.
yep.
And you don't get that from a hoax. You get that from actually seeing something and believing what you're seeing 100%.
Yeah, I've heard people come on to shows and tell their experiences, and some of them ring really true, like Joe's, and some of them
Mhm.
ring pretty hollow. You just
Yeah.
have your own discretion as to what you believe and what you don't believe, as far as what people tell you. But they have the right to believe. If they truly believe it, you know, that's that's all there is to that,
Well, yeah. I mean, do you or I have any right to
No.
disprove them if they're not hoaxing? If they sincerely believe they did see something, well, I guess you saw it. I can't prove you didn't see it. So, and there was such unique characteristics about Rasta, though, physically and everything like that. It's quite unique. It's quite unique, the
It
whole
was quite the
deal.
process to draw that out for him too. Excuse me. It was He give me a general idea, and I'd make an outline. And is this what you mean? No, change this, change that. It was a lot of back and forth, a lot of exchange, a lot of, and I told him straight up, I'm like, I'm gonna do my best, but you have to be, if it's not right, or it's not what you want, or it's not what you remember, just say so. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm doing this for for you.
Yeah,
This
to
needs to
get
be
it.
what you want it
Yeah,
to be.
yeah,
And, I would send him a little, I'd work it out a little bit and then send him a picture. And he's like, no, the nose wasn't like that. No, this was like this. No, that was like that. Okay, great. Erase it, redo it. you know,
well, it's quite unlike any other sketch I've ever seen of any kind of a primate. It's yeah, that the dreadlocks. Yeah, I don't know how that could have happened
I think it's
Joe,
just that it was raining. Yeah.
Joe's encounter was one of those rare ones. I've only heard a few of them where someone was actually almost right next to it, saw the point blank range, and was able to observe it for a little while before he lost sight of it. In Joe's case, his retreat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
advance to the rear quickly.
So if there is no Sasquatch, and there never was a Sasquatch, what Joe Snyder saw, I have no idea. I have no idea. If the Sasquatch does exist, I think it's a very high probability he saw what he thinks he saw.
Well, he saw something.
Yeah, he saw
Well,
something.
I mean, Joe would go through phases where that's a Bigfoot. Is it a Bigfoot? I don't know. Was it? Is it? I'm like, do you think it is? Is it for you? Is that what that was for you? He's like, for me, that's what it was. I'm like, well, then that's what it was.
I like what he said to
Yeah.
me. He told me, I can't think of what else it could have been.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Either way, we'll never know. but it was a great teaser into the whole subject
Mm-hmm.
of Sasquatch. And yeah, and I mean, if you see this, I gotta thank you, Jeff, for putting it all together. And it was uh, it was a nice job. It was a nice job. That'll last the ages. That interview. And I'm sure most people who look at it will also believe in it as well. And I hate to use that word believe because of the connotations that go with it, but I believe that he saw something, and it was highly within the realm of possibility that it was a primate of some sort. What kind, I don't know, but how many kinds can be running around, hey? You know,
Yeah.
it's, well, maybe it was a homeless, you know, a
Doggone big one.
homeless hominid, a homeless hominid. And wow, I don't know. But one thing I do know, it sure scared the hell out of him when it happened. He was not a calm observer. He was in a terrifying situation, which I don't know. Did you ever get your train back again, Bill?
Nope, just be listening to you guys. That's fine.
Now, Jen, in Washington last summer,
Yeah.
which is just a year ago now. Matter of fact, last year at this time we were just getting ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the night, and I've heard this story from Nikki, and I want to get your perspective on it.
Okay.
The night after myself and Brent left,
Yeah.
you had a bit of excitement around your tent. What was that all about?
Well, Nikki and Dakota and I were hanging out by the fire ring. Um, Jay and Monda had gone to bed. You and Brent were gone. Mike, Mike and everybody, Papa, and they were all over on the other side in their camp. And we're sitting and we're just chit chatting, and there was a noise from the brush to, well, if you're standing at the fire ring in the center, to the side where the creek entrance was,
Mm-hmm.
back in there, there was a Dakota and Nikki heard it. There was like a bruh sound, growly sound, and okay, so we kept on hanging out and talking, and eventually it got late, and we were like, all right, call it a night, and we all went to our tents and went to bed, and then I woke up. I coughed and I woke up, and then Nikki goes, "There's something in the trash." I said, "Okay," and I just sat there listening, see if it, hear a bear or any kind of noise, and then I hear 3 footsteps come across the gravel to the corner side of my tent. And Monda's truck was parked there, and that game trail ran behind my tent.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear crunch, 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 boom, bumped the truck. And, and at that point, I went, oh, that's interesting. So I slowly got my phone and stuck it inside the bag, the sleeping bag, and turned the recorder on so it wouldn't light up the tent, and set it down to let it record. And there was movement around my tent and apparently over at Nikki's tent and Dakota's tent. Dakota heard mumbling and something pushed on the side of his tent. and woke him up, and he could hear like mumbly voices, and he listened to that for a little bit, and he's just like, meh, and he went back to bed. Nikki had the chop thing happen to her. My tent, I heard something kind of moving behind my tent, and I moved, and as I moved, it's on my recording actually. You hear me go, my bedding move a little bit, and then from right behind me you hear, oh. And then there's the tote that was between the two of us, between our tent, my tent, and Nikki's tent. There was a tote with a sleeping bag in it, and you hear that moving and sliding back and forth in the dirt, crunch, 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 crunch. And then Sibylla shook her head in the little where Jay and Mondo were sleeping. You heard her collar jingle. And as soon as that happened, that tote that was crunch, crunch, crunch went thump. And Nikki, I think, was making her videos. I just stayed quiet and let the phone run. I did get a little whiff of skunky smell.
Mm-hmm.
It came through, and it wasn't super strong. Kind of floated through, and it was gone. And then when we got up in the morning, walked around, and there was footprints all over the place with water rings all around them. And we, walked around and took pictures of those. There was a bigger set next to the truck, back end of the truck on the wood side. There's a set there near the trash bag. And there were smaller ones. And they were all over the place. They were up by Dakota's tent. They were by my tent. They were by Nikki's tent. They're in amongst the chair circle. And we got up, and we expected, the kitchen area to be trashed, like just stuff everywhere. Wasn't. A little critter had come in at some point because the bottom of the bag was chewed apart a little bit. But we found the foil packets from the barbecue were taken out of the trash, and they were open. Not shredded, open. And they were clean. And some of them were on the ground, some of them were back in the back of the truck, some of them were back in the trash bag. And then the rotisserie chicken bag was down by the creek. It wasn't chewed on, it wasn't ripped up, but all the chicken bones and stuff that Jay had put in there were gone. It was just, got up, and Nikki's telling me what she heard. I'm telling her what I heard. Then Dakota came down, and he told us what he heard. And we walked around and took pictures and talked amongst ourselves about, well, what do we do with that? And
I find it a bit surprising that not so much on the part of you and Nikki because of the situation you were in, physical situation you were in the tent. But I find it unusual that Dakota didn't even bother to stick a flashlight out there to see what was going on in camp. You turn over and go back to sleep again.
He woke up, and he heard something pushing on the side of his tent structure. And he sat up and he listened. And he heard like mumbling voices, and he just said, "Nope."
Well, I don't understand this. What was the German Shepherd's name again?
Isabella.
It's about she barked at everything. Why did she not react? Whether it was Sasquatch or a raccoon, I'm surprised she didn't bark.
They gave she had allergies. They gave her allergy meds before bed.
Okay, because you heard her collar moving, so she.
Yeah, she got up and scratched. You could I could hear her ears flop and her collar jingle on her.
Yeah.
And then she was quiet again. Yeah.
How long would you say? How long would you say all of this went on for, Jen?
Oh,
From start to finish.
well,
what time of night was it? Let's start there.
the recording. I turned off the recorder at 3:20 something in the morning because that's the time. I believe it was 3:23 or something. I don't know. So it was noises on and off. Probably for an hour, hour and a half, maybe. Because I'm thinking we went to bed probably around 12:30, going on 1. In that general area. I'm not positive of the exact time.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't asleep real long when I coughed and I woke myself up, and that's when Nikki said there's something in the trash or something in the kitchen. And it was a good few minutes before I heard the footsteps and the boom and the boom next to my tent. And after I heard the walking, I was like, well, that's one of two things. And either way, should probably document it, because if it's either of those two things that are walking around, if something goes sideways, at least there's documentation of it.
Yeah. Thomas,
So,
did you ever see pictures of those footprints?
Yes, when Nikki was posting them, I saw them. Yeah.
What did you think?
Who knows? I mean, they weren't like the track we were looking at the first day I got there, or the track Jen, or the more shaped like the track Jen thought she found on the second day. But I don't know what to make of them, quite frankly. There could be a dozen explanations for them. I was just annoyed that all this happened the night after I left.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Nikki said too. She's like, Thomas is going to be so pissed.
Your reputation preceded you. They waited till you were gone.
Yeah, me and Brent left the evening before because I had to get back to Canada. My BCAA was going to run out. It's time to go.
Damn, thought those guys would never leave.
Been there a week. A lot of fascinating searching and stuff, but nothing really solid being found. And sure enough, the morning after we gone, we hear that something was in the camp. Possibly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the smaller little Gatorade bottles, the little 16, 32-ounce ones that are kind of like that size.
Yeah.
Little ones. We had those, so I put those down next to. We use that for a scale, and the footprints were only about as big as the bottle. And then the ones at the back side of Jay's truck were the bottle and a half.
Okay.
But all the other ones that were down by Dakota's tent and by Nikki's tent and in amongst the chairs were all this size.
Makes you think that they were rummaging around your campsite area for quite some time to leave all of those prints.
And they were still wet.
Yeah, so they came up from the creek.
Yeah, because you could see around the outside of the footprint the drip marks from the water. Like, so it must have
Well,
been.
you didn't find anything that looked like a large barefoot print, did you? I mean, I didn't see that in Nikki's pictures.
The bigger ones by Jay's truck were deeper, and it looked like almost like it had like a little shuffling effect because there was like a little mound of dirt built up. But in some of those, you could see toes. You could see where the toes were, and yeah, I mean
That's interesting.
some of the smaller ones when we first got up in the morning and they were still wet, they're much clearer. Then as we started taking pictures,
As they dried out, they lost formation. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could see the water droplets. Like you could see the little footprints, and you could see the shape of a toe. You know, they weren't deep.
Yeah.
They were very surface. They weren't like down in the ground. They're very surface. But around the outside, you could see where the water had dripped into the soil, and that ashy soil just kind of holds it, kind of, sort of. I don't know. It's like powder, putting water on powder.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. But yeah. Yep. And Nikki walking around looking at all of it, she's like, Tom's gonna be pissed. Brent's gonna be even more pissed.
Well, I gotta admit, I mean, Jay, we ate better in that camping trip than we would in a restaurant. You know, man. I mean, it was fantastic, the layout.
Yep.
But let me tell you, if that was in grizzly country, I would have been very nervous because of the food that was left out at night and stuff. You know, and I think a bear probably would have ransacked it.
That's what I figure.
Yeah, you know, even a black bear would have ransacked it.
It was very subtle.
Very subtle
infiltration.
Foil neatly open, it would have been torn open and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's like Nikki and I both got up in the morning expecting to see a disaster area.
Yeah.
But
even
it wasn't.
Raccoons can get really messy when they want something, you know. But raccoons will open things and stuff.
Yes.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, well,
they left because they heard you guys moving around the tents and got spooked. Yeah.
But you think they would have left? You think that if that was the case, they would have left little raccoony type footprints around the place, impressions. You know, they're not footprints.
Yeah,
but
you would have saw like raccoon prints on the truck dust and stuff like that.
Oh, look, raccoon. You know.
Yeah.
Well, there were raccoon prints around. We saw them all through the week.
Yeah, but like this, like the bag of pretzels we had sitting in the back of Jay's truck that never got opened. Like we got up in the morning and Nikki's like, I heard something and it sounded like a thump, but it was coming from over here. So we walked around and you know, the styrofoam coolers, we had them stacked up because they were empty. And so
we got to
let them bang against something, and she's like, "That's what it sounded like." And then she's like, "Okay," and she walked over and she took the pretzel bag and she touched that and moved that around. She's like, "Well, that's what that sounded like." So,
hey, Nikki, how you doing? Good to see you there.
I don't have chat. Hi, Nick.
She's lurking. Yeah. But they're very curious, very curious. All kinds of information going off in all different directions. The only thing really missing is somebody who would stick a head flashlight out of their tent and saw exactly what the hell was going on. You know?
Yeah, and Nikki and I were both like, we need to have walkies if we do this again.
Yeah, between the
Yeah,
tent.
that wouldn't
Because
hurt.
there was nobody for us to reach out
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that should never have happened. I mean, in my opinion, the setup should
Well, we
never
didn't,
have happened the
we
way it
weren't
was.
thinking that it was gonna happen,
Well, of course not, but
But yeah, like we didn't have phone service and we didn't have walkies. So even if Thomas and Brent were still there, they were at the opposite end of the campsite from us.
yeah,
So if we had walkies, we could have hollered for
absolutely,
them to come out and look
absolutely.
or something.
Yeah,
But
Yeah, we were good 100 150 feet away down the trail from them, from the main camp where we set up. Matter of fact, I was woken up a couple of times by squirrels scrambling all over the top of my tent and stuff, like they were fighting. A number of times, you heard noises every now and then, but other than the first night when we had other humans just down the road away playing music way too loud, we never really saw anybody there other than people on the trail, like horse riders and things like that.
well, Nikki says it was the last night, even the beer spray was gone. So that's how defenseless they were. They didn't even have beer spray anymore.
yeah, I mean, it was didn't feel really in danger personally. My personal feeling, I didn't feel like I was in any immediate danger.
Hmm.
But
So you were far from pushing the panic button.
yeah, I just, I said, well, that sounds interesting. So I turned the recorder on the phone and just
What did the
wrapped up.
recorder pick up? Because I do that too. I always got my recorder with me all the time.
Steve, Curious Scripted, had
Uh-huh.
started going through it, but I don't know that he ever finished it. But from my listening through it and through Bill Trackway's listening through it, and I had a friend of mine who is a musician, has a friend here in Columbus who has a professional music studio,
Yeah.
take the audio, and he just toned down the sound of the creek
Yep. Faded out. Yep.
and pulled some of the other stuff up. And in that you can hear what I heard by ear, the right behind my tent by ear. You can hear that in the recording. You can hear footsteps in the recording. You can hear, I call it like a throat sound, kind of like boom, boom.
Yeah.
And
You don't think it was one of the dogs?
no, it wasn't a bark.
Mhm.
This was
Oh, sometimes a dog will go, well,
no, it wasn't, because it came from being in the tent directionally to me, listening to it in real time. It came from that way, which would have been down towards the kitchen stream area.
Yeah. So what became of that audio? Where is it now?
I have it. Nobody's ever done anything with it. I've never done anything with it. I have it. Bill Trackway has it. But other than that, that's it.
I see. That
Yeah,
Trackway's a nice guy. I met him
He is. Yep,
last
him
week. Yeah.
Yeah, him
Nice
and
guy.
his wife Deb, they're awesome. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. And Bill is serious about his tech.
Yeah, very, very soft spoken, but funny at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, him and Deb, they're a great team together out there in the field. They work well together. And they're just two great folks to go hang out with. We have fun. We catch something, great. If we don't, we still have a good time.
Yeah, it was a great group where it was.
I know
Yeah,
he
no.
enjoyed it very much. He did. We were just talking about it today, and he's like, "It was too short. I want to spend more time talking to all them guys. It was so much fun." Yeah. He really enjoyed getting to spend time with you guys and Brent and Nikki, and he had a blast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that bothered me is Nikki kept trying to play tricks and scare me in the dark there, and
Oh no, not
Did it
you.
work? Did it work?
no,
Oh, damn. Booga booga.
I didn't have to do a damn thing. All I had to do was stand still, and she'd run into me or something.
You didn't pumpkin head her this time or men without bones?
What's that? I don't know what you're talking about there.
When we were in Washington, yeah.
I never heard those stories. Oh, that was
Okay.
somebody else who told you that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Do you know, Jerry, that even in Washington they have the men without bones?
You're kidding.
Oh yeah.
It's a bloody franchise. Who knew? Wow.
But really, that first day, those footprints that Dakota found,
Mm-hmm.
they were fascinating.
Did I send you the picture of Thomas laying on the ground looking at it? I think I did.
See, I got a picture of Thomas Dakota, and I don't know if you were in it or not, the third person. Anyway, they were looking at the ground, and I'm sure Thomas was saying, "Look, that's a chipmunk. I'm starved." And the very next picture showed him on his belly, reaching into the bush, trying to drag this poor chipmunk out, squawking and screaming. And Dakota had a look of horror on his face, and it was a bloody massacre. Yeah. And that's what I thought those pictures were.
Then they barbecued the chipmunk later.
And then they barbecued it later. Bits and pieces. Yeah. Shish kebab. Yeah.
No, Dakota had the tenacity to cover the track up because they found it the first day they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And we could see the marks where several others were. And of course, they're slowly disappearing, except for the one he covered up. And it almost looked like something had come out of the trees into the clearing because there's this kind of like a line where it would come out of the trees right into an area that could be used as a campsite, and then it stopped and then went back the way it came. And who knows what it is? It's still very, very interesting track. It really was. Alleged track, yeah.
Trying to. Okay, let's see here. No, that's not it. I thought I don't have them on this laptop. I've got them on my laptop upstairs. The pictures from
between Dakota cooking and Mike cooking and Jay cooking. Woo-wee.
Everybody got fat.
Oh man!
Everybody got fat. Yeah.
Didn't need chipmunks, Jerry, with all that food there.
How many hundreds of chipmunks' lives were saved because of that?
Exactly.
Oh God! Yeah, the great chipmunk massacre. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
But no, it sounds like you guys had a lot of fun down there, and from what I gather in the pictures that I've seen and whatnot, is fantastic country visually,
Mm-hmm.
and you were very fortunate to have someone who knew the area like the back of his hand to be your guide,
Hmm.
to take you places of interest instead of just wandering aimlessly around the wilderness. And
Well, this was his normal camp. This is an area he always liked to go to set up just for a weekend camping trip, wasn't it?
mhm.
That was his spot, and we were basically occupying his area, and where he had an encounter some years before, and
We wandered around the mountain on the drive up.
yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, when you go up and you see "Don't go any further" in a sign that looks like it's been there since the 1920s, you figure, "Oh, this is not the right way. We've missed it. We got to go back."
That's what gave you your first clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Road closed. There's not even a road there anymore.
Road decommissioned.
Mhm.
Even worse. Yeah. But no, I would have loved to have made that trip. And but the little get together up here wasn't bad either.
Well, we
I
had
wish I could have made. I wish I could have made this one, but I just wasn't going to be in the budget for me this year.
Yeah, budget wise, time wise, there's a lot of logistics that go into this kind of stuff. I was surprised that it turned out as well as it did.
Mhm.
I mean, I know Wizard, he ended up staying stateside for reasons, and but it was sure good to, I mean, finally meet face to face, meet Nikki and Brent, Trackway, and Michael from Calgary. Can't forget Michael.
Mhm.
And Thomas Steenberg and Bill Reed and Brad. And I know I'm missing somebody. Uh, Jerry. Yeah, Jerry. It was a good time. It was a good time.
Oh,
Yeah.
it really was. I think Nikki really enjoyed finally getting to see, where Jacko was allegedly captured and the Chapman location and stuff like that. But boy, it was unlike Washington last year. It was brutally hot when we're up here this year.
Well, they were lucky because they packed up and went home a day before the real heat
Yeah.
hit up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was nice and sunny. It was warm, but man, Nikki went to your place on Sunday, and that day the heat just skyrocketed for the rest of the week.
Mhm.
Yeah, so pretty lucky in that regard. But all in all, it was a good time for all who attended. And I said to Nikki, man, yeah, that was cool. We should do it again in August. Yeah. Pick a
Well,
spot.
Ken, any future plans, like any thing on the horizon, Sasquatch wise, for you and your location?
A couple of impromptu things, but mostly I'm gonna go to the Logan Festival, the Hocking Hills Festival, the PA Bigfoot Camping Adventure,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're gonna go to Whitehall.
Hmm.
Mm.
We're gonna be staying out at Wizards, one of Wizards areas. Then we're gonna go to Whitehall, and then we're gonna go back out to Joe's area for a couple days.
Ooh, very good. All around the circle.
Yeah,
Boy.
pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember when I first started an interest in this and reading various books and what have you on the subject. I always thought about the reports from Whitehall. I said, Whitehall? That's in New York. What are Sasquatch doing in New York? But since then, I've noted that there are a fair number of reports out of Whitehall area, and there's something to them. But yeah, I find to this day I find it strange. I mean, knowing Joe and Jonathan, and you say, you really got Sasquatch over there? Send them home. We miss them.
Jerry, the whole reason I left Ontario to come to Alberta and BC, because I thought back in the 70s, 80s, in the early part of the 90s, that the Sasquatch was strictly a West Coast phenomenon. I was strictly in that camp, right?
Yeah.
I thought, well, how can things be seen in New York and Pennsylvania? You know, I thought of the eastern part of the continent kind of like Europe. You know, wilderness is a small patch of trees between towns. But then I got to see it myself. I mean, Ontario, you know, that's all bush anyway, and Canada.
Oh, yeah.
But in the eastern United States, I thought, oh, it's little batches of trees in between towns. No, the towns are little dots and great big batches of wilderness.
Yeah.
And of course, I started listening to guys back then, like Don Keating and
Sure.
Diane Stocking in Florida, and I had to admit that what they were coming up with sounded pretty good. Then I got to see the Pine Barrens myself and Ohio myself, and I thought, no, there's no reason whatsoever that if the Sasquatch exists, they couldn't exist there.
Yeah.
Well. They maybe not be in the numbers we have in the West Coast, but if they exist, but they definitely.
What do you make of the diversity of body types and everything? I mean, the Pacific Northwest Squatch is different from the Ohio in some cases. It's different from anything in Florida, whether you want to attribute to being a swamp monkey or something. But I mean, how can they look so different in reports? Not all reports, but some reports. I mean, a bear is a bear. A black bear looks like a black bear. It can have multiple colors, but it's still got the physical attributes of a black bear. A grizzly is a grizzly bear. It has all the physical attributes from bear to bear to bear to bear. It's only the Sasquatch is the only one that sees you go from Hulk Hogan to Patty. You know, I mean, I just don't get it. Why such diversity in body types?
And probably where they're living. I mean, you know, colder climates, I think you need to have more body mass. I know there's a shoot, I can't remember the name of it, but
what you're thinking of, Jen, I think, is the theory that when you have a single species, the more northern they are, the larger they tend to be.
Yeah.
Which is certainly the case with a black bear. I mean, black bear or not black bear, you go to some areas in North America, and an average black bear is 150, 180 pounds. You go to some areas like Vancouver Island when the average could be double or three times that. Same thing with grizzly. The only difference between a grizzly and a Kodiak or a coastal brown is their diet. You know, an average mountain grizzly is about 400 pounds, where a Kodiak again is easily double that, or a coastal brown is easier double that. Things like raccoons, a BC raccoon is about 3 times the size of a Florida raccoon. Right, those are simple things. So that could be some of the size difference that you get with people that have come across Sasquatch. Some of the other things, those people that go out and say, oh, there's 8 or 10 different subspecies, and say the type 3, which is that baboon looking one, versus the type 2 or whatever. I think that's pure nonsense. But I think for some of the description differences is just the food availability, especially proteins, and how far north they are. And I think it's more of a size variation than anything else.
yeah, I mean, different colors. I think that could also have something to do with their environment as well. I mean, if you're living in a colder climate, having maybe a darker color to hold some of the sunlight, or if you're in a warmer climate, having a lighter color to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
It could just be genetic variation within populations. I mean, you get that even amongst people in areas that aren't far divergent. It's just because of the, whether it's recessive genes that have become prominent in one area versus another, you will get those small population variants. And if Sasquatch does exist, it's probably doesn't have a high concentration of individuals in any given area, and you may have that isolation.
But yeah, I agree with all that. But the thing is, a bear is a bear is a bear. A black bear is a black bear, although it comes in every color under the rainbow. You can have black bears that have various color schemes, but they still look like black bears. They don't look like grizzlies. They don't look like polar bears. They don't look like Kodiak bears.
Commode looks like a small grizzly, but I get you. I agree with your position there, Jerry. But and that's where, again, like, I don't believe in Sasquatch, and this is where, I've often said we make questions to tailor answers that we've already come up with ourselves. Like, for example, if you read some of John Green's and other early researchers' books back in the 60s, they would say, oh, one of the reasons why we think Sasquatch exists is because how similar all the descriptions are, no matter where you go. And then you flip that, 30, 40, well, I guess around 50 years later, now they're saying, oh, wait, we have 8 or 10 different subspecies to try to explain why people aren't describing the same thing. So it's again, it shows sometimes the intellectual dishonesty we have in the research, where we formulate an answer and then we make the question suit the answer.
Yeah, pseudoscience.
Yeah, and so that's exactly like, there are people, and I bring up Dongman all the time because you can see what's happened over the last 10 years with Dogman is what's happened with Sasquatch over the last 30, and you can see where people are going, oh, there's 8 subspecies of this and 10 subspecies of this, and they'll positively quantify them. And it's like, you haven't even proven one species exists.
That's right.
now you're talking about geographic variants or different species that have different traits. Like, people talk about the Genosqua or face eater and how that's different, or how around parts of Oregon and Washington you have an especially aggressive species that might be killing people, or the devil monkeys, which you get up in Alaska. Like, we haven't proven one, and yet people talk as if there's dozens of these things, a dozen of different types out there. And
oh yeah, they got the whole lineage lined out going back into the distant past. Wow.
And there are a lot of things that were there was a lot of talk of counters in the east, especially the southeast, like Arkansas, Louisiana, and everything, where for some reason the Sasquatch had 3 toes rather than 5.
Yeah, what's that?
But most of that was based on the legend of Boggy Creek and the tracks found in Willie Smith's bean field, and that sort of got the impression in people's mind that it was mostly 3. If you talk to Lyle Blackburn, and I got this information from the late Smokey Crabtree, he said most of the tracks that were found were actually 5-toed at the time. So there was that much, but the public perception was that, for some reason in the East they have 3-toed feet rather than 5, and that's simply not the case.
I thought that was for Yowies. 3 toes. Jennifer.
Yes.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Name 2 of your favorite Sasquatch authors. And be careful here.
Well, of course, Tom Steenberg.
Who?
Who?
Yeah, who?
And
Thomas is a former author. He hasn't released anything in a decade.
You're only as
and
good as your last book. Boo.
Yes, and unless he gets his ass in gear, he's a former author. So
That's right.
feel free to make any choice you want, Jen.
2012
Jen.
wasn't that long ago.
It's not like I have a compilation of Bigfoot books, really. I just picked up Steve Cole's new one.
I gotta get that one. I haven't gotten it. Yeah.
I did read some of Don Keating's work after I met him a couple times at the festivals.
Ohio Bigfoot. Yeah. His book was called Ohio Bigfoot.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was Grassman.
Yeah, I don't, I go out and I rather experience stuff personally. Yeah, I'll read through stuff. I'm not a Bigfoot scholar, as you would say, you know.
But you seem to have found a way to enjoy the subject.
Yes. Yeah. To me, I mean, I think it's very interesting. I think it's a good pursuit to see if it can be proved or not.
And if it was proven to be false tomorrow, how would you feel?
Be bummed out, still go out the woods though. You know?
Would it be onto Mothman for you, or would it be Sasquatch or Jersey Devil, or is it just a Sasquatch as far as your interest goes? And
well, I mean, I've gone down to the Mothman thing, and listened to the speech, and went out to the TNT area and stuff like that.
You were just being polite.
It checked it off a list.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's something. It was fun, great. I have less belief in there being a Mothman than I do in there being a Sasquatch. Personally.
Yeah. Well,
That's me.
I struggle with what the heck is a cryptid anyway.
I know a lot of these things.
Is a vampire a cryptid? Is a werewolf a cryptid? Is a creature from the Black Lagoon a cryptid?
No.
Well, say nay all you wish, good sir. But if you pick up Coleman's book on cryptids, and he has over 100 cryptids in it, of which I believe only 2 are a cryptid.
Cryptozoology is reported but unconfirmed.
We're going to fight now, Jennifer. Hold on.
Okay.
Reported and unconfirmed animals. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what cryptozoology is. Weird shit from the paranormal universe that people come up with, like goblins and fairies and all kinds of other things, aren't cryptids.
And really, here's again where you should be going to the source material, and I forget the 2 gentlemen's names that are basically the fathers of cryptozoology.
Yep.
They invented it in the 50s,
and they changed
the term,
it.
And trying to bring the study of unknown animals into scientific limelight, and they were very clear on their original approach that they were talking about flesh and blood animals that were either unknown to science or were known to science, but science thought were extinct. There was absolutely zero room in their definition for anything that would be classified as supernatural or even alien life. It was very, very narrow focused, and over time, again, as other researchers from different endeavors have come in, they've polluted the waters, especially when some people start bringing in Sasquatch are related to UFO somehow, or you get into the interdimensional aspect, or you bring in mythologies of the supernatural Sasquatch. That was never what cryptozoology was originally about, and people have just changed the definition. It's part of this new generation you have nowadays, where people think a dictionary doesn't really mean anything. You can take a word and change it to define it as you see fit, and that makes it just as relevant as its real definition. And that's what's happened with cryptozoology.
Yeah, cryptozoology was recorded of unconfirmed animals. Sasquatch was among them. Loch Ness monsters, t-shirts, but also could have been a butterfly reported but not confirmed. A little lizard somewhere or something like that was cryptozoology, not werewolves.
Yeah, because it all had a basis.
Yeah.
It all had a basis of being derived from this planet. Like I say, if you're going to be from this planet, you have to act like a creature that is from this planet. And Dogman doesn't, and all the rest of them don't. It's the only, in my opinion, there's only two cryptids in the world. One is Caborosaurus, and the other one is Sasquatch. They're the only two legitimate. It's been pretty well debunked. The Loch Ness monster is out of the picture, but I think it's entirely within the realm of possibility for Caborosaurus to exist, or even for as that species to exist. It's no reason it couldn't exist.
Well,
And Sasquatch has a good possibility of existing, because it's akin very much to your bear population and the needs and wants of that population. So why couldn't it be possible that it lives? But everything else is pretty outlandish in in concept. And
well, I would disagree with that, Jerry. I think the thylacine.
I knew you would.
I think the thylacine has a very good chance of being of still being out there. I think there's some more sightings, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do find an extant population somewhere, and that's even if they don't clone them. And I think if you get into something like the orang pendek, I think there's this orang pendek. The last, if I remember correctly, the last fossil dates back to 20,000 years ago. Again, here's an animal unlike Sasquatch, where Sasquatch there is nothing scientific that you can link that animal to this continent. At least with the orang pendek, you do have Homo florensis in those areas, which do to a large extent match the description of what people are seeing there now. So I would think something like the orang pendek, the thylacine, maybe some of the lesser known ones in the Congo or even South America might exist. But I think as a general rule, you're right. I mean, Loch Ness monster, Loch Ness, it only formed after the last ice age. So it's not like dinosaurs have been hiding in there for 65 million years. Prehistoric reptiles are being hiding in that lake since for 65 million years, because it wasn't there. And plus, that lake's not that big. I mean, it's half the size of Harrison Lake.
Yeah.
And that's where most of them, if you look at it, where's the food going to come from?
Well, see, that's where the idea of comes from, underwater tunnels. So it cannot just live within the lake. It also has to be able to leave the lake and head for the open ocean.
Well, it could be during the Loch Ness monster, the whole plesiosaurus, if it exists, is completely wrong. It's just something that happens to look like one. A seal looks like a plesiosaurus at certain angles from the fins up. So
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think some of the some of the tales of sea monsters may exist, because I think, and I've asked this question before, but when it comes to the ocean, I think if you were to ask 10,000 marine biologists, do they think there's undiscovered life in the ocean of medium to large size animals? You're probably going to get 10,000 say, yes, there is. We haven't discovered them. We haven't seen them all. There's great depths we haven't explored. But what people forget, and it's one of the pet peeves I have, is you'll always bring up when you're talking about, Sasquatch, for example. They'll go, oh, but what about the giant panda? Or what about the gorilla? Well, first off, the giant panda was well known by the Chinese government of the day, which was just as sophisticated as the European governments. So they were known to the area. The fact that some European didn't know about them is a moot point. Again, the gorillas, they were discovered within 50 years of Europeans moving into that area. So I would always say to somebody, if you think Sasquatch exist, play a mental game. How big of an area do you think Sasquatch inhabit? If you think it's just the size of BC, do that. If you think it's all of North America, do that. Then go down and look when the last undiscovered animal was found on land. We're not talking ocean, that meets the criteria of being 200 pounds or larger in size, or 6 foot tall or larger in size, has an area that they live in the same size as what you believe Sasquatch live in, and whatever the human population is in the area that you believe they exist, in that area. And you will find that you could go back probably 300 or 400 years before you will find the last time something was discovered that would meet your own criteria. And that just shows to me that Sasquatch can't exist because there is no precedent out there. Like when they talk of, and also I felt, take in genetic ones. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, they found a new species of zebra. Well, they found it by DNA. They found that what they thought was one species of zebra was actually two. But again, look at the history and see when these animals have been found, and you'll see there's nothing out there that even comes close to be the size of Sasquatch that's lives in an area the size of California, Oregon, Washington, BC alone, that's had a human population in the millions for this long and not be discovered. Exploring the worlds of panda, as I said, the government of China, which was just as sophisticated, was discovered by the Chinese. They knew they were there, and again, certainly Europeans weren't in that area for hundreds of years without knowing they were there.
As far as I know, Jared, the last large animal confirmed that was in the realm of cryptozoology was the Kuvang ox, which was finally officially confirmed in 1993. But the Vietnamese government always knew they were there. Matter of fact, when they brought out the first skeleton of one, the Vietnamese farmer who had it in his shed said, "What's all the fuss about?"
But even that doesn't match the criteria, Thomas. That would only match the criteria if you believed that Sasquatch lived in a small area, because, again, in the Tibet Mountains, they found a breed of horse that's about 1,000 pounds. They only live in one valley that's 17 miles long by approximately 1 mile long.
That's true.
So you have to match all the factors. You have to match, because there's probably undiscovered animals in the Congo. There's probably undiscovered animals in South America, because those are areas, Laos, because the wars kept those people out of those areas for long periods of time.
Hey, I got undiscovered creatures under the seat of my pickup truck.
But when you talk about the Sasquatch, look, when you're trying to say, oh, there's species discovered every year, match the criteria for discovery to what you believe Sasquatch is, and you'll find that there's nothing out there that matches the criteria. There is no precedent for an animal being around for hundreds of years around people of that size not being discovered.
So there, take that, Jen. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
No, it's an intellectual act. It's an intellectual exercise. You know, look at it yourself. Part of the reason I don't believe Sasquatch exists is because I don't see how an animal meeting that criteria could avoid bones in the boneyard, clear pictures that are undescribable, that are obviously real. Everything else, we have nothing. We have
Bummer.
footprints that are may or may not be evidence, and then you have sightings which are, anecdotal evidence. So, it's nothing else out there.
Bummer, Thomas,
Which
and
is
you
why
and
it's
you
a mystery and why we're here. Yeah.
you two are friends. Bummer, Thomas.
Oh, he is. Bill's the best skeptic I ever knew. He's an open-minded skeptic, and that's what we need. A healthy dose of skepticism is the best attribute a researcher can have.
True enough. Jen, see what you started?
Way to go, Jen.
Thank you for coming on board this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I've had a blast. I haven't seen you guys. I haven't seen Thomas in a while.
Washington this time last year.
Yeah.
I was really sad you couldn't make it up this time, Jen.
I know. I wanted to, but just wasn't gonna work out this year, unfortunately.
Well, there's always one reality that hits every researcher, and that's the reality of financial hardship. If you haven't got the money, you can't go. Yeah,
Yep.
That's just the reality of it. We're all doing this out of our own pockets.
Yeah. It's like, the couple of things is like they already said it, they already planned and the ticket for this was bought or that was done. Like, all right, well, the local stuff, and then how am I going to make this work?
Yeah.
Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? Can I move this here? No. No is the answer. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
You now hold the dubious honor of being the first female guest on the Bookbuzz crew.
Ooh,
And
yay.
you'll get your little certificate in the mail. Or you'll be certified, one of it or something. Anyway, Jen, loved having you here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Nice hanging out and talking to you guys and all the different sides to the feelings about it.
And there are many, many different sides. That's for certain. Yeah. Okay, thanks, folks. It's getting to the top of the hour, so it's time to move along. And we'll see you again the same time next week with another very interesting guest. So drop on by and have a good evening.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Okay. Do.